I know I make a lot of videos about SJW snowflakes. The purpose of these videos is to make people stop and think, and I know that's a pointless gesture because the majority of SJWs I've run into are simply incapable of thinking intellectually about the positions that they hold. The only way they know how to react is emotionally, and you don't actually find out anything useful about the real world when you wear your emotions on your sleeve and keep your brain shackled. Yet that's exactly what these people do. And then they get upset when anyone points out the failure of their chosen methodology. So here we have two special snowflakes who are really upset, not at the idiocy of their own positions, but at the people who dare to point it out to them. Hey, stupid feminists, there's a reason why people think you're stupid.
This video is going to be a discussion with a friend interspliced with a beer and a chat. This is because my pal Riley and I shot a collab at VidCon that ended up being super awesome, but slightly incoherent and hard to edit, as VidCon vids often turn out.
Hey now, don't blame VidCon. Your video's incoherent because of the people making it and the subject matter. It doesn't matter where you are, it matters what you say. But of course, you'd never admit that, would you?
I'm a non-binary trans woman, and I make YouTube videos about feminism and social justice and all sorts of stuff that interests me.
Well, let's be honest. You're not a non-binary woman because, by the very definition of the word, men and women are binary. There's only two demonstrable genders. You might not identify with either one, but genetically, you're a man whether you like it or not.
Hopefully you think our conversation is interesting while my solo commentary clearly drives forward the points I'm trying to make.
Isn't that the whole point of having a commentary in the first place? To drive forward points you want to make? Seriously?
So this is a scary video to put out there. I predict that 2 hours after this video is posted, the ratings will be okay, but 2 weeks after it's up, and the ratings will not be so okay. And that's because there's a community out there on YouTube made up of viewers and creators who seem set on silencing anyone who talks about anything they deem too social justice-y.
Alright, nobody's trying to silence you. For a lot of YouTube content creators, you're their bread and butter. If they didn't have you around to make response videos about, they'd have nothing to do. Nobody's trying to shut down your channel, nobody's false flagging your videos, nobody's trying to get you fired from your jobs because of the stupid things you say on YouTube. You know who does that kind of stuff? Social justice warriors! Your side actively tries to destroy detractors financially, emotionally, and personally just because they dare say things you don't like. And then you play the victim. Good job!
Kind of a specific group of YouTubers who are just known for making angry response videos and kind of sending a lot of commenters to go to people's videos, feminist videos, to dislike them and comment and just destroy their ratings basically.
Welcome to free speech. I have every right to respond to something idiotic that I see online. And if you don't want to be the subject of one of those responses, don't put stupid crap on YouTube. But instead of taking that commentary seriously, instead of stepping back and seeing if the things you're posting are just as moronic as everyone says, you play the victim card and pretend that everyone's out to get you. No, you're just an idiot. Get a grip.
It's almost like there's a threshold for them of social justice issues that are all right to discuss and support. There's general LGBT rights, sometimes binary trans identities like trans men and trans women, sometimes mental health advocacy, but anything above that threshold, like rape culture, trigger warnings, privilege, non-binary genders, Black Lives Matter, and definitely feminism are not okay in the slightest to these people.
There is no threshold. What you're really looking at are people examining your ideas and finding them ridiculous. That's because they apply logic and reason, which is something clearly you don't do, and then they find your pet positions to be lacking in intellectual merit. But because you operate on a wholly emotional level, you're completely blinded to the utter stupidity of your own content.
Now, every individual in this community is slightly different. I want to acknowledge that before we continue. There will, of course, be exceptions to the things I'm about to say, and I don't want you to watch this video and then go on making sweeping generalizations, lumping people in this category and thinking everyone in it is one certain type of way. That's not the case.
And that's why you immediately generalize what all of your detractors are like, right?
That being said, largely the community that I'm talking about has strong associations with things like advocating for freedom of speech.
You say that like there's something wrong with it.
Atheism.
Again, you say that like there's something wrong with it.
Championing logic and rationality.
Now you're just going right off the rails. If championing logic and rationality is wrong, then you must be saying that your own videos and your own ideas are both illogical and irrational. Well, far be it from me to disagree with you.
And if they have channels, most of the videos they make seem to be focused on ripping apart social justice advocates and their views.
No, most of the channels that I watch are dedicated to taking bad ideas and showing why they are bad ideas. It's not my fault that the content you create is chock full of ridiculous crap. I don't limit my content to social justice morons. I also talk about religion and politics and pretty much everything else that I see that's nonsensical and without intellectual merit. It's not my fault social justice warriors produce such ludicrous nonsense in copious quantities. Maybe you ought to knock that off.
For the sake of communication, I'll give this community a name. We'll call them anti-feminists. This is simply because while all their views differ slightly, a vast majority of them seem to have a major opposition to feminism, so anti-feminists it is.
And that's not because they have an irrational hatred of feminism, but because modern third and fourth wave feminism is such a laughingstock, full of irrational and ridiculous ideas pontificated upon by people like you who have clearly never stopped to think about it rationally. Your whole position's based on feelings. Nobody cares how you feel. We care if you can intellectually justify the positions that you hold. And clearly, you can't.
If I find a better name later, I'll refer to them differently. Now, the real problem I have with the anti-feminist community isn't their views. I mean, their views bum me out, but there will always be people whose views bum me out. That's inevitable.
Being bummed out is not a rational way of looking at the world. You can either rationally defend your views or you can't. And you can't. That people point out that you can't, and it makes you unhappy, that's your problem. If you don't want to be ridiculed for your beliefs, stop believing such ridiculous things.
The thing I really dislike about anti-feminists on YouTube is how strongly they advocate for freedom of speech, yet seem determined on silencing anyone they disagree with.
Nobody's trying to silence you. If they were trying to silence you, they'd be filing false claims against your videos in an attempt to get them taken down. Clearly, that hasn't happened because your channel still exists. Disagreeing with you is not silencing you.
And they go out of their way to do it. They actively search for social justice advocates and then make videos devoted to ridiculing specific people.
Well, that's called content creation. Again, we do it because we want to point out the stupidity of the things you're saying. We're responding to your points and showing why your points are ridiculous. Again, if you don't want to be ridiculed for your positions, stop holding such ridiculous positions. Make better points. Produce actual evidence. Stop feeling your way through life. People make fun of you because you say stupid things. Knock it off!
And it's my opinion, their critiques tend to be more condescending than constructive. I feel like they pride themselves on it being a very logical, rational community.
Oh my god.
The fact that you're confused by people being logical and rational says a lot about you, and none of it's good. When you say things that make no rational sense, when you say things that are completely unsupported by any kind of objective demonstrable evidence, when you say things that are utterly idiotic, and people come by and say, well, that's just stupid, you have no right to get upset at that. They're pointing out your own problems. You ought to learn from it and change what you're doing. The fact that not only do you not learn anything, but that you double down on your own stupidity, that says more about you, and it certainly isn't positive.
Well, what do you say to that then? Do you think they are, in fact, as logical and rational as they claim to be?
Absolutely not. So, my problem with this is that a lot of times they're atheist channels, and I'm an atheist, and I don't want to bring religion/atheism into this, but it is largely atheists who are I'm so logical, and I am perfect, and everything that I say is objective. And that's obviously not true, but they try to pass themselves off that way. Their comments are always, this is illogical, and you don't know what you're talking about, and trying to discredit you and saying that they're objective, when they don't recognize that every person has a bias, every person has a perspective. Even I try to acknowledge my own biases, my own perspectives in my videos. I know when I'm making an argument that this isn't the objective facts, it's an argument. So I just think it's misleading to say that this is everything exactly as it is, and I know that it is, without acknowledging your own perspective.
Now, I can't generalize, but the reason a lot of people are atheists is because there's no evidence for the existence of any gods. They don't have any bias except toward the truth. And that's why they've gone out, and I can only speak for myself and others that I know who have done the same thing, but that's why they've gone out and read the holy books, examined the evidence, and usually know a lot more about the facts than the religious people that they debate. The same is true here as well. I mean, take the gender wage gap. That's been discredited more times than I can count. The actual evidence simply does not support the claims. It's totally debunked, and I'm sure the two of you have seen it debunked many times. Yet you still cling to the demonstrated lie that women make less than men. In fact, feminists know it's a lie because they specifically construct their claims around the gender wage gap to get around the facts. They're not ignorant, they're dishonest, and for some reason, you two seem to support that.
And the videos they make implicitly encourage their audience to go over to their target's channel and harass them.
That's simply false. A lot of YouTube content creators specifically tell their followers not to go harass anyone. They can't actually stop anyone from doing whatever they want to do, though. That's simply the reality. But another bit of reality is that most of what you call harassment isn't harassment at all. Telling you that you're wrong is not harassment. Making response videos is not harassment. Downvoting your videos is not harassment. Let me let you in on a little secret. Nobody owes you money. If you make stupid content, then you deserve to have people who think it's stupid give you a thumbs down. People downvote you for a reason, because what you're doing is ridiculous. Maybe instead of whining about how unfair it is that people don't like your content, maybe you ought to make better content.
Their audience bombards the social justice advocates' ratings with dislikes. Many people have bragged to me in the comments about how they made multiple accounts, dozens of accounts, just so they could dislike my content several times. That's dedication. And creepy. Creepy dedication. And it's important to note that lots of these anti-feminist YouTubers have real power and armies of hundreds of thousands of people behind them.
There is no power. If lots of people follow a channel, that's usually because they agree with what that channel has to say. If those people disagree with what your channel has to say, they have every right to come to your channel, express their disagreement, point out where they think you're wrong, and click thumbs down. That's how YouTube works. Welcome to the real world.
How much power does this community have?
Yeah, so it really depends. There are some who are very large YouTubers with a lot of influence that lots of people follow. And if they decide to target someone, especially a smaller person, it can bury them in the amount of dislikes and comments and things like that. But there are smaller people who make response videos and their impact isn't quite as big because it's like any YouTube community, even if it's, I would say, a negative one, it has a wide range of YouTubers with different levels of influence in it, basically.
I've personally been specifically targeted by anti-feminists with millions of subscribers. When somebody with that much social influence goes out of their way to talk about just how dumb they think you are, it's scary.
No, what's scary is that when people point out how dumb you are, you're unwilling or unable to step back and ask yourself if they just might have a point.
And the ramifications of their choice to do this are serious. As a direct result, my comment sections have become filled with threats, violence, and hate speech.
If you've received any legitimate threats, report it to YouTube. It violates their terms of service. But I suspect you haven't because threats of violence are meaningless on the internet. Nobody can actually physically assault you online. But, keep appealing to emotion because you don't have any facts on your side.
And you can't say they are simply exercising their right to disagree with me. It goes far beyond that. These kinds of audiences have even given themselves a name. They call themselves attack helicopters, and they do attack in droves. I understand that their actions aren't face-to-face. Their attacks are just over the internet, but it's still harassment. I'll prove it to you. Comments I get on my Everything Gender video, a project frequently targeted by anti-feminists, go as follows. Trigger warning, incredibly graphic, and derogatory language up next. Am I the only one who would happily gun down any of the mentally challenged cunts featured in this video? This is the most cancerous, autistic, idiotic video ever. I sexually identify as an attack helicopter. Ever since I was a boy, I dreamed of soaring over the oil fields, dropping hot, sticky loads on disgusting foreigners. People say to me that a person being a helicopter is impossible and I'm fucking retarded, but I don't care. I'm beautiful. I'm having a plastic surgeon install rotary blades, 30mm cannons, and AMG 114 Hellfire missiles into my body for From now on, I want you guys to call me Apache and respect my right to kill from above and kill needlessly. If you can't accept me, then you're a heliphobe and you need to check your vehicle privilege. Thank you for being so understanding. If I had a bullet for every gender there was, I'd only need a double-barrel shotgun. I need to learn to tie a noose.
They don't call themselves attack helicopters. Jeez, you're an ignorant idiot. The whole reason the attack helicopter thing came up was in response to the SJW fill-in-the-blank gender nonsense. It's a meme. You're too clueless to recognize a meme when you see it, or even do the slightest research on the internet. And you wonder why people think you're an idiot.
Have you had any personal contact with the anti-social justice community?
I have had people make response videos to mine with not the nicest language in them that does send people to my videos. And that's kind of been my experience with them, is just I wake up in the morning and there's 100 comments telling me to kill myself. And that's really the extent of my experience with them. I try to avoid watching the response videos.
Good for you!
Well, maybe if you watched it, you might learn something. But yeah, no, that's not going to happen, is it? Because you don't want to learn anything. You don't want to know if you're factually wrong. It might make you feel bad. You might actually enter into a dialogue with someone who doesn't buy into your SJW bullshit. It might get you out of your echo chamber and into the real world. And that's a scary thought, isn't it?
Do you watch them? If they're
I can't help it. If there's
Really?
one about me...
Really? I have not watched them.
Oh!
Really?
I have to. I know that there's a video
Oh my
just like
gosh.
hating me out there.
Yeah?
Yeah, maybe I'm giving them power. I am.
Yeah. Like, that's what I was worried about, is if I watch it, it's like I'm giving them views, I'm
Sure.
giving them watch time, I'm kind of validating that what they're doing is an okay thing that, like, people are going to watch. But no, I feel the curiosity. Like, I do want to know what's in it. But at the same time, I don't want to... I know it's just going to make me feel bad, and it's just going to frustrate me, and so I try not to.
There's nothing wrong with feeling bad. If you have as ridiculous a position as you do, you ought to feel bad. Ultimately, I think the point of doing a response video is to point out the absurdity of the thing that you're responding to. Now, you don't have to agree with me, but at least you should look at my reasoning to see if you can refute it. But then again, this isn't about facts, it's about feels, and you don't care if what you believe is actually so, as long as it makes you feel good.
And it often goes beyond cyberbullying. One of my good friends, who's a creator, expressed having problems in their real life as a product of these anti-feminists. People at his school found the anti-feminist videos targeting him, and they used these videos as fuel to make fun of him IRL. He also received threats before going to VidCon from anti-feminists. Needless to say, my friend did not feel the safest at the con.
Aw, somebody makes fun of you! The horror! Again, there's no safe spaces. If you say something stupid, you ought to be called out for it. It doesn't matter if it's online or off. You should be held accountable for the things that you say and the things that you believe. But yeah, by all means, go have yourself a good cry because your precious widow fifis were injured. Threats of violence are illegal, and I would trust your friend called the authorities, right? Right? Oh, wait a minute. No, of course that never happens, because there was no threat.
Now, I imagine anti-feminist creators who see this video will say they are not responsible for the actions of their audience. This seems like a huge cop-out to me.
It seems like reality. I have no control over the actions of anyone but myself. Now, I've never told anyone to go abuse anyone else online. In fact, I tell people not to. But again, this isn't abuse, this is free speech, something you SJWs don't understand. You have the freedom to make videos saying whatever you want to say. Other people have the freedom to respond to those videos any way they want within YouTube's terms of service. That's how freedom works. You have freedom, they have freedom. We all win. You just don't like freedom when it makes you feel bad, and that makes you a pathetic loser.
Your audience certainly isn't literally controlled by you. You're not in their home forcing their hand, but we've seen this pattern for years now. An anti-feminist makes a targeting video and their audience goes over in droves trying to destroy the target. That's just what happens. This leads me to believe they either condone the behavior or simply don't care.
How exactly would you suggest they actually stop anyone? Oh right, you just want them to stop criticizing you. Well, stop being such an idiot and they won't bother. Other than that, you just have to deal with the consequences of your own stupidity.
That's where anti-feminists and I differ. If my audience went over and virtually attacked another creator because of things I said, I'd be pissed.
You can be pissed all you want. What can you actually do about it? Because SJW attack dogs are very, very common. Wearing the wrong shirt on TV, and you get SJW assholes demanding that you lose your job. That's real-world consequences. It isn't some people commenting on a stupid YouTube video. Why don't you rent some perspective?
Where we disagree, but instead of having our audiences fight the fight for us, we can open our ears and minds and listen, learn, and discuss.
So when do you plan on doing that? What you have here are lots of people who disagree with you, and you're not engaging any of them. Now, if you look at the comments on my videos, anytime I have someone asking questions or criticizing what I've said, I engage with them. I start a conversation. What do? You whine about it.
I don't want to just complain, so I'll offer some solutions. I think we can work towards a better future by doing two things. When I say we, I mean everyone, feminists and anti-feminists. All people. Number one, explicitly tell your audience that you don't condone them attacking people you disagree with. I'll do this now. Hey audience, as you watch this video, I feel like it's safe to assume that maybe a few specific anti-feminists popped in your head. If you want to go over to their channel and express why you disagree with their views, that's fine, but please remain respectful and constructive. I'll be disappointed if you purposely try to make them feel like human shit.
Fine. Lots of content creators already do that. Do you think for 1 second it's going to stop anybody? I sure don't.
Number two, make videos responding to larger issues rather than specific people.
When specific people are saying stupid things, you have to respond to those people. Now, I'll agree that you should make your videos about the content and not the individuals, but let's be honest, some people are just too stupid not to make fun of. That's just reality. Time to deal with it.
If you have a problem with something, say trigger warnings or third wave feminism, make a video breaking down those concepts.
And we have. Those concepts are total bullshit. And sometimes you just need to make a video and respond to the concepts specifically brought up within the video. And you don't seem to like that. There are thousands of videos on YouTube already pointing out the stupidity of trigger warnings and third wave feminism. Or didn't you know that?
Why go to all the trouble of finding someone who talks about these things just to mock them?
Maybe because the things they're saying are mock-worthy.
Is it because it's more entertaining? Do you think it'll get more views? Because if so, that just makes me feel like you're capitalizing on making fun of people. You've turned mocking others into a money-making business. To me, that's gross. I just don't respect that. I just can't believe people who do that have good intentions.
And there's honestly nothing wrong with that if that's your shtick. Now for me, I don't make a red cent at this. I'm not trying to make money on YouTube. I do it because I think it's important to do it, because stupid people need to have their stupidity exposed to the world. And again, if you don't want to be ridiculed for your stupidity, stop being stupid.
I think they have a very set values that they adhere to very strongly and like identify with very strongly, that you know, there's no wage gap and trans people don't exist and stuff like that, and they want to defend those ideals, and they know that if they do it in this very inflammatory and aggressive way, that they will get views, and that there are people who will resonate with that, and they've learned to exploit that and to use it to, like, help them get more popular.
The wage gap is proven to be total bullshit. Obviously, trans people exist. There's a well-known condition called gender dysphoria. Just declaring that you're a made-up gender online without any kind of medical diagnosis does not make you trans. And let's be honest, popularity on YouTube is pretty fleeting. If they're doing it to make money, well, that doesn't bother me. People do all kinds of idiotic things on YouTube to make money. You don't have to like it. That's just the way it is.
How do you handle it when you do get a wave of hatred that comes to you after they've targeted you?
Honestly, it's still a thing that I'm trying to figure out how to cope with. And a large part of my response has been to just stop looking at the comments.
That's your problem. People are trying to help you to stop being an idiot, but you're so emotionally invested in your irrationality that you just can't handle reevaluating your position. So you just pretend that it doesn't exist. That's not a mature response.
I haven't looked at my comments in a couple weeks. When I post a video, I'll look at the comments immediately afterwards because I know that the people who are watching the video immediately, it's just the people, my normal audience who wants to see the stuff. And then it takes the trolls, I don't want to call them trolls, but the hateful people a few days to find my video and start making comments like that. So I can respond to things quickly, but I don't check all of my comments like I used to. And I'm not sure if that's the best way to be dealing with things. I don't know. I want to be checking my comments, and I know there's an argument for disabling your comments to not give them that opportunity. Yeah, it feels like YouTube has rules in the terms of service against harassment and bullying and stuff like that, and yet channels are allowed to thrive that are just built on harassment and bullying, which
Yes.
it seems like it shouldn't exist.
It's definitely not the best way to deal with things. You should welcome feedback, even if you disagree with it. Feedback is designed to help you be better. But apparently holding rational views is not high on your list of priorities. Nobody's bullying you. Rent a spine.
So those are my thoughts. I look forward to the inevitable video responses specifically targeting me to come. And for those of you about to ask, no, I will not participate in a live debate with you.
Well, of course you won't, because you have no confidence in your own positions or your ability to defend them. That's not a surprise to anyone.
I have a full-time job, a family, and frankly, better things to do than engage with the 100 people who want to argue with me over Skype.
Yet you still make ridiculous videos on YouTube.
However, I am genuinely interested in your constructive thoughts, whether you disagree with me or agree with me, so please let me know them in the comments below. Okay, bye!
I have to admit that I have my doubts. You seem to think that anyone who disagrees isn't being constructive. Now, I haven't insulted you, at least any more than you deserve, but I have a lot of constructive thoughts about the whole SJW side, the first of which is stop being so absurdly hyper-emotional about everything. Stop, step back, and think about what you're saying and actually care if what you're spouting is factually true and rationally defensible. Actually give a damn about what comes out of your mouth. But we all know that's not something that anyone on your side will do, because if you did, the full retard nonsense that comes from your side would have to just go away, and you sure can't have that, can you?
Okay, bye!
Killed it! Nailed it!
Smashed it!
Alright, what the fuck was that? Seriously? Anyhow, I just find it funny to see the SJWs complain about how mean people are to them. When I've looked through the comments on a bunch of SJW video creators, and the overwhelming majority aren't particularly mean, and they certainly aren't threatening, they just challenge the positions that these people have, and apparently being challenged is one thing these special snowflakes just can't handle. They just don't care. They're emotionally attached to their positions and can't even consider the possibility that what comes out of their mouths is just false, totally indefensible, and rationally invalid. It makes them feel good, and that's all they care about. And when someone points out that they're wrong, they just don't know how to react, except in complete horror that somebody would dare not agree with their emotionally comforting beliefs. But that's just not how the real world works. Feeling good is not the same as being correct. As I've said many times before, the most uncomfortable truth in the world is still the truth, and the most comforting lie is still a lie. Your feelings don't impact any position being true or false. If all you're using is your feelings, you've got something wrong with you. Maybe you ought to actually care about reality for a change, and it can only gain you respect. Well, except from the other special little snowflakes who wouldn't know rationality if it bit them, and those people are simply intellectually disgusting.